All right, let's start with the next thing I want to do, which is going to be kind of adding some sort of keyboard control or key listener of some sort. So let's share screen and continue on with this because I wanted to kind of get a bit more done when I've got a bit of time. Made my cup of coffee and stuff, so I'll just sort of move some of this over out of the way. Minimize. Okay, we left off with all these bits and pieces. I want to make maybe a input area inside the engine to allow some sort of input controls. So let's make an input package. Inside the input package, for now, I'm just going to put a keyboard. Eventually, I want to probably add mouse and stuff like that as well. But just for now, I want to make like a keyboard controller as such. So for the keyboard controller, it's literally going to sort of extend a built-in key adapter. So it's going to be using the key adapter as a sort of premise as a starting point. So let's say extends key adapter. That's just basically like an event sort of handler. So from this, I want to kind of find out if it's been pressed or not and what key has been pressed. And also I want kind of a bunch of, this isn't necessarily the best way of doing it, to be honest. It's not the most performant way, but since we're just using Java and it's not, it doesn't really matter for the type of thing that we're going to be doing. It's going to be negligible for the system. So I want like private static list of integers. So we're going to have to import the list. Let's see. So list of integers called pressed. So these are the things that have been pressed. So I'm going to make a new array list of integers. Okay. So now we've got that. I also want kind of an array of booleans to be the keys. Now we have quite a few keys on this thing. We could probably have like 250 odd, 300, whatever. We can make virtually as many keys as we like. We could add different keyboard, different sorts of things in there. But for now, let's just make a medium-ish to large-sized array. It doesn't really matter too much. So let's make a private static Boolean array called keys and set it equal to a new Boolean array of 1024. Don't know if they're going to be like 1024 keys, but you know. Okay, so we've got this big, massive array of keys that's available to us. So let's check whether it's been pressed or not. The easy way of doing that is I want a public static Boolean method called key pressed. And then we'll just pass it a key. And then what it'll do is it'll return whether it's true or false inside the keys array at the key index of key. So basically, if it's been pressed, we'll want that to be true. If it's not been pressed, we'll want that to be false. Yeah. We also want to do kind of the whole whether something's been typed. So we're kind of going to be doing a bit more of a whether something's been pressed, whether it hasn't been pressed, and so on and so forth for this. So that's where the pressed comes in as well. So we don't over type stuff. The other thing what we want to do is we want to kind of have this whole getting a key code as well based on an event. So we want to override this key pressed. So we also want to do public void key pressed. And that's going to take in a key event. I'll just call it E. Just call that event E, whatever you want to call it, to be honest. So that's going to check out the keys at e.get key code. That actually may be slightly interesting. I might have to add more possible entries into the Boolean. So I don't know whether I might need something interesting there. But basically equals false. No, sorry, not false, true. So now basically that's setting that the key's been pressed. Yeah. So we've got key pressed as something to check something or return something. We've also got key pressed that takes in a key event that sets it. So it's like a getter and a setter for key pressing. We'd also want kind of a release of a key. So that's going to be similar to what we've already got. We're just going to be setting it to false instead. So I can pretty much copy this same concept. And instead of key pressed, we'll call it key released. Taking in the key event, it's going to change that to false. And also, we need to find out let's think. Well, we need to deal with release a typed key or something. That's another sort of handle that. Yeah, so we want to be able to handle that. That's going to be something. But for now, we've got just pressing and releasing, so not anything super major. I think for the typed, we need sort of like something that's been pressed already, like that's hence the list of integers there. So I guess we can have a key typed. Yeah, wasn't it? So this one's going to be basically checking whether a key's been typed or not. And when I say typed or not, there's a couple of interesting little concepts there to return. So if we say public static, it's going to be a Boolean return. Key type and passing the integer key. So now what we're going to do is we'll say if the key is false to start off with. So sorry, if the key is already key down as such, which means that should be kind of true. So basically, if not keys key, yeah. So it's going to say, okay, if we're not pressed down at any given time, then we've not typed anything. Therefore, it must be false anyway. So we can kind of shortcut to that. Yeah. Now, if our pressed thing contains it, then in theory, it's been pressed, but not released at that point in time. Therefore, we can return false if we get to this point. Yeah. Because this means it has been pressed. So it hasn't hit this if condition, which means that must be pressed. In which case, if it's pressed and it says it's pressed, then it's not typed because you need to have pressed it and let go of it to type it. So in theory, we can just say, okay, well, if let's say that pressed dot contains literally an integer. So we want a new integer passing it the int of key. So if it contains this, yeah, then we can remove it basically. But well, no, we don't want to remove it. We just need to return something, don't we? So we can just return false at this point. Okay, why did I put of? Typos for the win. So if that contains the integer, do I need to import integer? Invert the if condition. contains a new integer key. I mean invert the if condition. Use of API mark for removal. Oh, okay. Integers like something that's marked for removal. Okay, so it's eventually going to get deprecated, so it's not a broken thing just yet. That's interesting. I didn't realize they're not going to have integer in there. That's right though. Right. Okay, not a problem. So now we need to basically, if it hasn't already been pressed, we need to add it to the pressed. Yeah. So we'll say pressed dot add a new integer of key. So that way it's being pressed now. You know what I mean? And then we can just return true. Because it's been pressed now. Okay. So in other words, when you press down, let go, that's typing something. So it's been typed. So we can go and check whether the key's been typed at any given time. In that sense. Let's see. So for the release, we probably want to remove anything that's been typed. So yeah, we've added it here. We'd want to kind of remove it again from the release. So handle the release of a typed key. So for this one, we need to do some removal of stuff. So we need to check if the pressed dot contains again a new integer. This time we want to get the key code. So e dot get key code. Then what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, if that's true, then I want to say pressed dot remove new integer, passing in the e dot get key code. I suppose I could do that on one line, but that might get confusing. So I'm going to just do this. There we go. Mind about these integers, it looks like it may get deprecated eventually, which is a bit weird. You wouldn't really think that the whole integer would disappear. Just a strange one, but okay. Right, so that theoretically should be enough for a keyboard handler as such. Yeah. So to actually utilize this, we'd have to kind of import it and do stuff with it, I guess. So what we could do with this, there's a few different things we could do, I guess. Trying to think, there's some engine things that we can play with and whatever, but I do want to just test the functionality of this key listener type thing now. So that means I'm going to have to use the keyboard. Now I've made them static, so we should be able to just do the key press thing. And we're going to need a key event. We're going to need the keyboard, and we're probably going to need. Yeah, let's try that just for the hell of it. So let's go directly into our main. Realistically, when you're doing this fully, it will be kind of a bit more usable. So where's our update? Oh, in the update, we'll check key stuff. Yeah. So we'll say if keyboard dot key pressed, passing it a key event dot bk. Yeah. So if that's true, pressed. Yeah. And then we'll literally do a bunch of these. Up, down, left, right, let's say. Just as if we're doing like keyboard control of some sort. Yeah, let's capitalize that. Up, pressed, down, pressed. And we'll do a left. There we go. We've got a right press there as well. Let's see what's working and what's problematic here. Let's see. So let's just run it and see what happens. See what we get from this. It's got our kind of bluey sort of funny thing. I wonder where's the active console though for this? Where are we seeing that? Anywhere we can actually see the console? Oh man, how are we going to actually see this? We've got see out happening, but how are we having see out happening? Not really giving an interface for a thing, are we? So that's not really that helpful for that purpose. How about we say this is, how about this? Call that col. Yeah. Let's call that this.col. It's a little bit of weird debugging things, but let's say this.col, and we'll make a new thing called int col. Yeah. So basically we're setting the color to something. It's soon. So now I'll say, instead of that, I'll say, okay, this dot col equals 0x ff 0, and then rinse and repeat. Basically, we're going to kind of pop this in. It's that. Paste that and change it to maybe green background. So up is red, down is green, left is blue, and right is, I don't know, magenta. Red, blue. There we go, magenta. We've got some colors there. On instantiation of it, we'll say on init, we create display, and then we this dot col equals 0x white for a start. Why not? Let's see what happens with this. I mean, hopefully at least we'll see what's going on and whether it's getting the actual thing. Let's restart this now. Stop and start. We've now got a white. Up is not doing anything, down, left and right. So it's not really getting what I want it to do. Interesting. Although saying that, I'm definitely updating, aren't I? Am I even calling update here? Hang on a minute. Start. Render. Yeah, because I'm sure start is calling update and stuff. So that should actually technically be doing something. Maybe that needs to be fixed. We'll figure something out with this. There's a few interesting concepts there. Is that happening within the correct sort of time? We do want some sort of input as well, don't we? Hang on a minute. How are we going to do that input? We need to set it in some way. How are we going to set the input? Because we don't have input set as a keyboard yet. So that doesn't exist. We need to kind of create the connection between our keyboard and the general input sort of status here. How am I going to do that? Let's think about that actually. I'm probably going to have to edit the engine a little bit to allow this to happen. You know what I mean? We need some form of device, don't we? The keyboard device. So we need to actually enable that within the actual display to allow it to do stuff. So I'm going to have to do that in the graphics, otherwise it's not going to be able to actually do anything, I don't think. So we need to pass it a device number and then say, okay, I want to add a key listener, for instance, as the keyboard or something. I could actually do that. I can just do it as a standard starting point, but I want to be able to choose what device I want to enable inside there as a thing. So that means I need to play about with the actual display, and I want to be able to take in different concepts. So like the first or second or zeroth, or all the different types of inputs that we maybe could take. So in essence, I'm thinking I'm just going to add like an enable type data or something. I don't know. Public. It doesn't really need to return anything. Enable a device. So let's take it in as a byte. So I'm definitely not going to need more than 255 or 256 possible devices. Hopefully not. We've got a device. So if the device is equal to, let's say, 0, then it's going to be a keyboard. So I'm going to say window dot add key listener, and we'll pass it a key listener, which happens to be the keyboard. So new keyboard. So it's now able to listen on that thing. So that's one thing that we're not doing. We could have enabled it in the general JFrame stuff and everything else anyway, but for now, let's do that. And we can always add more later or something. What's it moan about here? Oh, that's fine. Already did that. So that's fine for that. So at least we're going that. So that means we need to somehow enable this during our start of the program. So we don't need to do loads of stuff to get this working, I don't think. But we do kind of need to add the ability to connect it up as such. So in that sort of way of doing things, technically at the beginning of what we're doing, in our actual main Java file, we kind of want to do that probably in the init sort of setup. But how are we going to do that in the init setup? We want to, let's have a look. How can we maybe want to set up what input we're taking in? Because in reality, this main's got, did I give it a graphics? It's got a texture. I want to be able to set the input in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. Now there's there's a few options here. I'm gonna eventually want to encapsulate it all into the system anyway. I'm trying to think of how I can just quickly get this. I know what I can do. I'm going to go into the actual core and set up a couple of things. I want like a keyboard thing. So let's see. I've got running. I've got that. I've got this. You know, I'm just going to put it here. So it's going to be a protected because we want the main to be able to see it. Use it. Final, because it's going to be like a constant, right? Keyboard, and set it equal to 0x0. So I can just reference keyboard by keyboard instead of giving it a number every time. Now, the other thing I want to be able to do is set the input. So which is going to be as simple as doing that display enable and just passing it the input. So I'll do that. Do I want to do it after creating display or before creating display, really? I'll do it after creating the display. So that display exists. So now we can say protected void set input, and then taking a byte device. And then we'll literally pass that on to display dot enable device. So that should set the key listener up in theory. Now it's eventually we'll be putting some form of like frames per second and limiter to this and all sorts of stuff. But for now, we have this sort of possibility of being able to actually deal with having a key and keyboard and stuff like that. Let's go and see what happens when we try and do this. So it's running, it's got a white screen. The up, down, left, right still is not affecting the screen. So there's something where I am missing connective tissue somewhere here, I think. Or if hang on a minute, I haven't actually, no, sorry, I haven't actually put it into the init yet. That might help, won't it? So set input to keyboard. Let's try that this time. I'm missing a few things that I wanted to do to this, but okay. Running again. There we go. Up, down, left, right. Okay, so up was red, down was green, left was blue, magenta was right. So I can literally start flashing the screen about like crazy, just using the down, left, right keys. So we know that these keys are working and now finally connected. It took a little bit of time, bit of messing about. I'm a bit rusty on this sort of stuff. Been too spoiled with Spring Boot and all that sort of stuff. Oh goodness. So now we've got this sort of keys working. That's great. So we'll kind of call it there. I'll go and have another quick tea break, and then we'll start implementing some more bits on this. So that was basically just setting up some sort of a key listener and the ability to use keys. And hopefully you can see how that actually comes together and is usable in some way. And again, this is just sort of like giving it the ability to have some interaction at this point. We can later on be creating like a texture or texture rendering ability, so we can render different things on screen like sprites or movable objects and all sorts of stuff. But for right now, we have the keyboard working. So that's a great sort of starting position, at least, for that.